They use water to harvest cranberries in the US. This 90-year-old farm is in New Jersey, one of the top cranberry producing regions here. Every year, 210 million pounds of cranberries are harvested in just 2 months before it gets cold. But cranberries grow in dry sandy bogs like this. When winter comes, the cranberry bush is covered with ice or an inch-thick layer of sand to protect it from frost. Because it is perennial, the same plant can give fruits every fall. However, farmers might replant older beds with higher yielding stems. It takes 3 to 5 years to develop a root system strong enough to not be ripped out of the ground during harvest in October. Cranberries have 4 air pockets that allow them to float. On the harvest day, the bogs are completely flooded. A harvester machine knocks the berries off the bush, and farmers then corral the floating cranberries towards an elevator that sucks them onto trucks. These trucks take the fruits to factories for packaging. Cranberries are naturally tart and crisp, so they are mostly processed into sweetened products like craisins and sauces. Just 5% of cranberries are sold fresh like this, which only happens around Thanksgiving in the US. Ocean Spray is the US cranberry giant that grows over 60% of the world's cranberries. For over 2,000 years, raisins have been America's favorite fruit snacks. Now, let's explore how California, the largest raisin state in the US, produces this delicious snack with a new technique called dried on the vine. Raisin grapes take 3 years to produce commercially viable products, and its journey begins in late winter. This is when the vines are pruned to focus the plant's energy on the remaining buds. They are then twisted and secured to an overhead trellis for optimal sun exposure. By May, the vines are heavy with grapes, which take about 70 days to ripen fully. Traditionally, raisins are picked by machine or hand and laid on paper to dry in the sun for 12 to 15 days. In the past decade, a new technique called dried on the vine or DOV has revolutionized raisin harvesting. Typically between mid-October and November, the harvesting grape canes are cut and left dried in about 6 to 7 weeks. Then a machine shakes the raisins directly from the vines. This technique reduces reliance on manual labor, saves water in extensive post-harvest cleaning, and finally doubles the raisin yield per acre compared to traditional methods. Unlike the berries in this video, apples can mature after harvest, so they are picked before they fully ripen. Washington State leads the nation with 134 million standard 40-pound boxes of red delicious apples produced each year. But it takes an apple tree 6 to 8 years to begin producing fruits. The harvest season stretches from early August to late October, with different apple varieties showing different ripening signs. For high-quality apples destined for fresh markets, hand-picking remains the preferred method. Each bucket holds almost 50 pounds, and pickers look for ripe apples that are 2 3/4 inches wide. Some big farms have used this specialized machine to increase efficiency and reduce damage. After picking, some apples are placed in a low-oxygen tank and waxed to extend their shelf life, making them available year-round. For large-scale apple cider production, tree shakers are used to harvest about 200 trees an hour, 330,000 pounds a day. Then apples are immediately rinsed, ground and pressed to release juice. Next, apple juice is fermented in oak barrels and big tanks for 1 month or 1.5 months to become a dry cider. strawberries are a delicate fruit with a short shelf life. The US is now the world's second largest producer of this Europe native fruit. In California, the prime harvest time lies between April and July. Each strawberry picker is paid around $18 an hour. On average, California farms need to prepare at least $35,000 per acre to pay for strawberry pickers each season. The one big problem with strawberry farming is that they are highly prone to diseases. So ancient farmers had to rotate crops yearly, which is not ideal for commercial farming. Thankfully, the US developed fumigation, making California the strawberry state with 90% of the supply coming from here. However, this technique can damage the soil, so some farmers don't use it. They invest in a state-of-the-art indoor facility or do lots of extra work before planting to produce some of the best-tasting strawberries ever. To maximize freshness, harvesting typically occurs in the cool of the morning before the sun intensifies. They also keep the harvested strawberries completely dry, or they will go moldy quickly. Pickers only choose fully bright red strawberries, grasp at about 1/4 of the stem, then twist at the same time to avoid bruising and detaching the stem. You see, hours of bending over or lying down like that hurt a lot. That's why strawberry picking robots were invented. With its sophisticated cameras and grippers, it can harvest one strawberry every 3 seconds with 95% accuracy and doesn't need any break time. But it comes with a $50,000 price tag and tends to work indoors only. Unlike the seasonal strawberries, asparagus requires constant attention. It is even more labor intensive, accounting for 60% of its cost. Farmers plant asparagus from root clusters, not seeds, and wait 5 years before a full harvest. They don't pick spears in the first 2 years to allow the plant to establish strong roots. Asparagus is a perennial vegetable, meaning it keeps producing for years. Farmers harvest in spring for just 8 weeks. Since asparagus grows fast in peak season, about 10 inches a day, it must be picked before turning all woody. Workers carefully cut the spears underground to avoid damaging them. It's a race against time because normally farmers grow 10,000 asparagus per acre and a big farm can be up to 400 acres. After harvest, the asparagus is cleaned, sorted and bundled. Green asparagus is the most popular variety, but there's also sweet purple asparagus that can be eaten raw, and white asparagus that fetch up to $29 per pound. Currently, there are around 4,500 acres of asparagus grown in Washington each year, making this state the top asparagus producer in the US. Tree shakers are available for cherry harvesting, but many farms still hire thousands of cherry pickers every season. Here on the 3rd generation cherry farm in Washington, the largest sweet cherry state, pickers are either paid $17 an hour or by the number of boxes filled. Around 25 boxes are expected a day, and for each extra box, they get a bonus. It looks like a fun job to do, but there are many rules to follow. Because cherries don't ripen after leaving the tree, pickers have to be careful not to pick the underripe ones and leave the stem intact so they can last longer. Once picked, cherries must be kept in the shade and out of the rain. It's also important to leave the woody spur on the branches undamaged, as this is where new fruit grows. For every group of 10 pickers, a crew checker is there to record the quantity and quality of each worker's harvest. Shaking machines, on the other hand, are faster for large farms. It gently vibrates the branches, causing ripe cherries to detach and fall onto conveyor belts below. This method may seem more efficient, but can damage the fruit and requires sorting to remove any leaves or unripe cherries. Once harvested, cherries are quickly cooled down to maintain freshness. Packaging has also transformed over time. Today, cherries are packed into smaller, consumer-friendly bags to minimize waste and meet the demands of modern grocery stores. When harvest season arrives, farmers begin preparing for a series of tasks they have done over and over again for decades. Even though it is a daily job, farmers still know how to keep it from getting boring. The interesting thing is not only in the harvesting, but also in the unique methods and techniques. All will be in today's video. Now, we will explore how farmers grow and harvest tons of agricultural products. Have you ever been to a jaggery plantation? Let's go to the earthen garden in Thailand to see what's interesting about the process of harvesting this plant. The jaggery plantations look quite impressive. The tree's trunk is tall and straight, and its foliage shades the ground. What do the little farmers do with these tall jaggery trees? At the top of the plant, the harvester uses a knife to cut off the tips of the jaggery flowers. The flower exudes drops of sap that will deposit in the bamboo tube. This is the first step to creating jaggery sugar. After boiling for about 45 minutes, the solution begins to thicken. The farmer took the pan off the stove and it began to turn sugar white. Without many harvesting tools or protective gear, farmers can only climb jaggery trees by hand, using muscle strength and skill to harvest the fruit. Falling from a tree can cause death. Therefore, harvesters must always work in good health to ensure safety. And they know how to make this dangerous job interesting. With just a simple loop of leaf rope, he can quickly climb to the top of the jaggery tree. It's as simple as a game. Once at the top of the jaggery tree, farmers often use knives or hooks to cut the jaggery fruits off the branches. A skilled harvest tree climber can climb 12 or 15 jaggery trees in a day. They tied a rope around the jaggery beam before cutting it. This allows the farmer to gently take it down without damaging it. This is the fruit of his labor. Jaggery balls are roughly the same size as a football. Most harvesters use the single rope method, tying the rope around themselves and the tree. This not only helps climb up and hold firmly on the top, but after harvesting, climbing down to the ground is also easier. The jaggery fruits are then collected for transportation and consumption. Behind the thick skin, the flesh inside is almost jelly-like. This is a fruit with a sweet and refreshing taste, really refreshing for the summer. It appears densely on roads and in beverage stands around the area. The Philippines is currently the leading banana exporter in Asia and the second largest in the world. Farmers have proven that the Philippines is the best exporter of bananas in the world, with outstanding taste and aesthetic appearance. Fertile soil, heavy rainfall, and abundant sunlight are excellent conditions for bananas to grow. After about 8 weeks in the nursery, the banana seedlings are ready to be planted in the field. From here, the banana tree's development journey begins. Once they reach a height of about 1 foot, banana plants require about 9.5 gallons of water per day, so an effective irrigation and drainage system is essential for plant health. Farmers use plastic bags to protect growing bananas from browning and control harmful organisms. About 10 to 12 weeks in the field after bagging, mature bananas are ready to be harvested. Farmers have innovated harvesting methods to increase productivity. At the same time, it can meet the global supply chain. Workers cut a 65-pound bunch of bananas and put it on the cable car. This cable car system is capable of carrying up to 75 bunches of bananas at a time and can go from the field to the processing station. Farmers will check and pack bananas into shipping boxes right at the banana garden. The cable car system will help farmers reduce labor, and it can bring these bunches of bananas to the processing factory area. They threw bananas into a large tank of water. Not only does it wash away impurities, but it also helps remove all the natural latex in the banana peel. They are cut into small bunches of 5 to 7 bananas. Foam padding is inserted to protect sensitive bananas from spots and lesions. When the bunches of bananas arrive at the packing station, the protective pads are removed. The bananas are then carefully inspected and selected to ensure that only the best bananas make it to market. Bananas are carefully wrapped so that the packaging is not crushed. More than 4 hours after harvesting, the bananas are placed in pallet boxes and loaded onto trucks for transport to the market. The combination of perfect growing conditions and sustainable farming techniques allows farmers to harvest premium bananas year-round. Not the fruit or leaves, the roots are the part that brings the main economic value of this plant. The root is rich in calories and vitamins and can replace expensive starches. Cassava is a shrub native to South America. In fact, the interesting thing is that eating the raw root can be toxic because it actually contains cyanide. But if ground, filtered and cooked, cassava is safe to eat. Planting usually begins at the beginning of the rainy season. Cassava is often propagated by cuttings. Farmers are preparing healthy cuttings. They cut the tree trunk into sections about 20 to 30 cm long, and each section has at least 3 to 4 nodes. Plant the cuttings at an angle in the furrow and leave 1 or 2 nodes above the soil surface. Farmers will maintain about 3 feet between plants and 4 to 6 feet between rows. This way, the mature tree will have at least 2 large branches and enough space to grow healthily. Cassava became popular because it is resistant to drought and pests. However, farmers still face challenges to operate the entire supply chain from farm to factory. Cassava is nearly 75% water, so it needs to be processed in less than 48 hours or it will rot. Therefore, manufacturers have tried to combine with processing plants near the fields to limit transportation time. Cassava roots are usually harvested on average about 8 to 12 months after planting. In underdeveloped countries, without many modern machines, harvesting is done manually. Farmers will pull cassava out of the soil, then leave it in the field and wait for transport. After pulling up a huge pile of tree roots, workers threw them onto trucks and took them to the processing plant. Every day, the factory can process 2 to 3 truckloads of cassava. After washing, the cassava is put into the blender, drained, the starch is filtered and put through the crusher. From here, a quality and cheap powder was born. Rising wheat prices have spurred interest in cassava flour. The growing market for cassava is mainly in Asia, Europe and North America. Nigeria, a country in West Africa, produces more than 60 million tons per year. They farm mainly on small plots of land, so most farmers will not receive the benefits of economies of scale. However, cassava cultivation is still maintained and expanded. This ensures the supply of starch to the market and prevents famine in disadvantaged countries. Similar to cassava, cocoa is often grown by small farmers on farms with an average area of 2 to 4 hectares. It is found in hot and humid regions, mainly in West Africa, the Americas, and Southeast Asia. During a crop season, cocoa trees usually flower and produce fruit in a 6-month cycle. With proper care, most cocoa trees produce fruit in the 4th year after planting and can continue to produce high yields for another 30 years. Harvesting involves removing the ripe fruits from the tree and opening them to get the wet seeds. The appropriate time to harvest is 3 to 4 weeks. After that time, the seeds will begin to germinate. Therefore, it is necessary to harvest at the right time and regularly. Currently, it is estimated that cocoa is grown in a total of 128 countries near the equator in the world. As the fruit ripens, it often changes color, signaling to farmers that the fruit is ready to pick. Cocoa ripens all year round, which means the harvest is the same. Farmers must use very sharp tools so as not to damage possible future fruit. A typical fruit contains 30 to 40 seeds, and each plant has about 30 fruits. It takes about 400 dry beans to make 1 pound of cocoa. Farmers open the shells to remove the seeds within 10 days of harvesting. The best way to open the pod is to use a wooden stick. If it hits the central area of the pod, it will split into 2 halves. Then you can easily remove the seeds by hand. After harvesting and separating the cocoa pods, the beans still covered with pulp are preserved. The pulp heats up in the sun and ferments. This process can last from 3 to 7 days, which is an essential step that enhances the flavor of the cocoa beans. After fermentation, the beans are dried in the sun for about 5 to 7 days. Drying stops the fermentation process and increases the shelf life of cocoa beans. The cocoa is further roasted to reduce the water content and obtain a rich aroma and flavor from the beans. The extracted cocoa butter is then filtered and stored in containers in liquid form for use in chocolate production. Cocoa cakes are broken into smaller pieces and ground into powder to create smooth, fragrant cocoa powder. Saying goodbye to fatty cocoa beans, we continue to come to a fruit with an interesting way of harvesting. And the almond fields in California are also the final destination in today's video. In the spring, usually from February to March, California almond trees begin to flower. These almonds grow from the time of pollination through the early summer months. From May to July, almond seeds begin to mature and develop maximally. The hardened inner seed is protected by the outer shell. As the rainy season ends and the weather begins to heat up, farmers begin watering their almond orchards to support their growth. At this stage, the almond shell tends to split open, revealing the almond, and the seeds inside are completely dry. In California, almond harvesting occurs from August to October, depending on the type of almond tree and the climate in the specific location where the tree is grown. Almond farmers use mechanical tree vibrators to harvest. This process is powerfully carried out mechanically with mechanical heads attached to the tree trunk. They are designed to shake the tree, and only the ripe almonds fall to the ground. The almonds are then further dried in the summer sun for about 8 to 10 days. Finally, they are scanned in rows. Harvesters are then used to move through the rows. It sucks the almonds into the truck. Finally, in another corner of the field, freshly picked almonds are transported for the next stage of processing. In fact, not all harvesting processes use tree vibrators. It also depends on the health of the tree. If the tree is too weak, farmers can use a machine to shake each small branch. Then the almonds are taken to the peeling facility. Here, all almonds pass through a mechanized roller to remove the skin or any other impurities such as twigs and rocks. All are stored under ideal humidity and temperature conditions so that the factory ensures a continuous supply. The conveyor system is designed with small holes to classify them by size. Small almonds will fall in here, while larger almonds continue to move on the conveyor belt to the next processing area, because large almonds have high value and are more sought after by the consumer market. Almond shells discharged from factories are crushed to feed livestock or used as animal bedding. A touch scanner system can detect and remove less than perfect almonds. The computer sends the coordinates of damaged almonds so the robot can find them. Workers look again to ensure that only quality almonds make it to market.